Your healthy breakfast is destroying your brain before 10 a.m. Busy women come to me and they're eating clean, following their doctor's advice, and they still can't think clearly in their meetings. And they crash hard by mid afternoon. Here's the brutal truth: the foods that you might think are healthy that you're eating every day are actually triggering gut inflammation. And that inflammation hits your brain within 90 minutes. I'm Jennifer Franchak. I'm a functional nutritionist and an AIP certified coach. In this video, I'm going to share the 5 foods that might be silently sabotaging your focus, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you should eat instead. Because once you understand how your gut and your brain are connected, you can finally start getting through your day with clarity instead of fog. Because here's what no one's really telling you: when you have an autoimmune condition, your gut barrier is already compromised. And certain foods, even the ones that look healthy or maybe are gluten free, can actually slip through your gut barrier and trigger your immune system, which then creates inflammatory cytokines that can directly impact your brain function. Now, before I show you these 5 foods, here's the pattern I see with almost every client who has brain fog. They're eating clean, they've cut out gluten, they're buying organic, they're doing everything their doctor has told them to do, but they're still dealing with the brain fog. They're still exhausted, maybe they're struggling to focus every day. And when we start tracking what they're eating in conjunction with their symptoms, we find similar foods that keep showing up again and again. And these are foods that they thought were helping them heal. So let's go through them one by one. And I'm going to show you exactly how they're sabotaging your brain and what to eat instead. Let's start with one of the most surprising brain fog culprits, and that's oats and other gluten free grains. Now, by themselves, oats are not a bad food. They're rich in fiber and they have B vitamins and minerals. But here's the catch: if you have an autoimmune disease, like I said earlier, your gut is usually more permeable or leaky than it should be. We call that increased intestinal permeability. So this means that that protective barrier in your gut develops these tiny little gaps. Because of this, larger food particles can slip through into your bloodstream and directly interact with your immune system. When that happens, proteins that are normally harmless can set off an immune response, which leads to inflammation. And in oats, that protein is called avenin. And structurally, it looks a lot like gluten. So if your immune system already reacts to gluten, avenins can act as a cross reactive trigger, and your body can't always tell the difference. The immune system sees avenin and it reacts as if it were gluten. And that reaction sends inflammatory cytokines through the bloodstream. And within an hour or two, you might feel that familiar mental fog or fatigue and maybe even irritability. And here's another point to remember: even certified gluten free oats can still contain trace amounts of gluten because sometimes it's prepared in shared processing facilities. So you need to pay attention to that. That tiny trace amount of gluten can still be enough to trigger inflammation. And it's not just oats. Grains like corn, rice, and millet can also be cross reactive. And this means that your immune system might respond to them in a similar way that it would to gluten, especially if your gut barrier hasn't fully healed yet. So, again, does that mean I'm saying that oats are bad? No, they're just not ideal during the healing phase. Once your gut lining has been repaired and your immune system is more balanced, many people find that they can reintroduce small amounts of oats and tolerate them with no problem. It's just all about timing. So while you're still dealing with active autoimmune flares and you're trying to heal, you want to focus on a protein rich breakfast with a mixture of healthy fats and complex carbohydrates. And this could be something like sausage patties made from pasture raised meat with some avocado slices and maybe a sweet potato with some cinnamon and sea salt. Now, the second type of food that can contribute to your brain fog are gluten free processed food. So you see gluten free on the label and you think it's safe and it should be healthy, right? But when you flip that package around and you read the ingredients, you might see cornstarch, rice flour, tapioca starch, xanthan gum, and maybe seed oils. So let me explain why this matters. These ingredients do 3 things that can lead to brain fog. Refined starches like corn and rice flour have a high glycemic index, and that means that they can spike your blood sugar rapidly. That spike triggers an insulin release, and it's followed by an energy crash 90 minutes later. And that crash is when your brain fog hits the hardest. And another thing I want you to realize is that these refined carbohydrates also feed the wrong bacteria in your gut, specifically gram negative bacteria that produce something called lipopolysaccharides or LPS. Now, LPS is bad because it leads to systemic inflammation and it's been directly linked to cognitive impairment and brain fog in multiple research studies. Also, xanthan gum and guar gum are added so that they can mimic the texture of gluten, but they also can irritate your gut lining and disrupt your microbiome balance. So, for someone with an already compromised gut barrier, this can almost be like pouring gasoline onto a fire. So, that gluten free sandwich that you're eating for lunch, it's probably not helping your brain fog. It might even be contributing to it. Instead of focusing on the processed gluten free snacks and breads, I want you to try to focus on whole food options. If you want something like a sandwich, you could try using a roasted portobello mushroom as a bun for a burger, or you could try lettuce wraps or even coconut wraps. Now, coconut wraps are made from just coconut meat and water. So there are no gums, no fillers, and you can fill them with protein and vegetables. And this is going to help stabilize your blood sugar for hours. Now, you might be thinking, okay, if you can't eat oats and you can't eat gluten free bread or gluten free snacks, what can you eat? Stay with me because the alternatives are going to be simpler than you think. But first, let's talk about food number three. And these are dairy alternatives with hidden gut irritants. So maybe you've switched from dairy milk to almond milk or oat milk because you're thinking that it's a healthier choice. But here's what you need to know: most commercial dairy alternatives contain ingredients that are worse for your gut than the dairy you eliminated. A typical almond milk ingredient list might include cane sugar and calcium carbonate and sunflower lecithin and sea salt and natural flavor and gellan gum and carrageenan. Now, let's talk about carrageenan specifically because it's pretty important to understand how it can affect your gut. Carrageenan is a seaweed derived thickener that's been shown in multiple studies to activate gut immune cells and increase intestinal permeability. When carrageenan comes into contact with your gut lining, it triggers the release of inflammatory cytokines. These are the same ones that can lead to your brain fog. It also can disrupt your gut microbiome by reducing beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. And gellan gum, locust bean gum, and guar gum, they all have similar effects. They're added to create a creamy texture, but they're irritating your gut lining every time you consume them. So, what you really need to look for is something like coconut milk with two ingredients: coconut and water. Or you can even make homemade nut milk. Almond milk is pretty easy to make. I've made it in the past, and all you do is you soak raw almonds overnight and you blend them in a high speed blender, and then you strain them through something called a nut milk bag. And this is something that you can get for really cheap on Amazon. This takes about 5 to 10 minutes, and there are zero additives. So, your morning coffee ritual doesn't have to sabotage your focus. You just need to be strategic about what you're putting in it. Now, if you're realizing that you've been eating all the right foods, but you're still dealing with that brain fog, I've got your back. I'm going to show you exactly how to fix this by the end of the video. But first, I want to talk about food number four. Food number four is more of a category, and it includes energy bars and protein powders with hidden fermentable ingredients. Now, I know this one might hurt because who doesn't rely on a quick grab and go option when you're trying to rush between meetings, pick up the kids, or get out the door for a doctor's appointment? But here's the problem: most protein bars contain sugar alcohols, and these are things like erythritol, maltitol, and xylitol. And many protein powders contain inulin or chicory root fiber. Now, these are FODMAPs, and FODMAPs are fermentable oleosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. And when these ingredients reach your large intestine, your gut bacteria ferment them and produce gas, bloating, and inflammatory byproducts. So, if you have something called SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which can actually be common in autoimmune patients, this fermentation happens even higher up in your digestive tract and it creates more inflammation. And here's the kicker with this: that inflammation doesn't just stay in your gut. Those inflammatory signals travel to your brain through the vagus nerve and through your bloodstream. So if your brain feels foggy about 30 to 60 minutes after your protein bar, it's not a coincidence. It's your gut reacting. So if you need a high protein snack, I would suggest trying something less processed, like hard boiled eggs, pasture raised beef sticks, or smoothies with a high quality grass fed whey protein isolate or beef protein isolate. Okay, we've been covering a lot here. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, I want you to take a deep breath. This is not about restricting what you're eating, it's about clarity. Once you remove these triggers, your brain fog can clear within 3 to 7 days. Food number five is eggs. This one is tough because eggs are incredibly nutrient dense. But for many people with autoimmune disease, the proteins in egg whites can cross your leaky gut barrier and trigger an immune response. And this is why some of my clients notice brain fog, joint pain, or fatigue within a couple of hours of eating eggs, even the organic pasture raised eggs. And it's not that eggs are inherently bad, just like the oats aren't bad. It's that your gut is not ready for them yet. And here's what makes this so frustrating. Eggs are a staple for so many people who are trying to eat healthy, and they're also a great source of protein. But if your gut barrier is compromised, they're working against you. So, what I'd recommend in this situation is temporarily removing the eggs for about 30 to 90 days while you focus on gut healing. And then you can reintroduce them systematically and see how your body responds. Now, many of my clients find that they can tolerate egg yolks, but not egg whites right away. And some can handle the whole egg again after about 3 months. But there are a few people who really struggle to reintroduce them, and that's okay. That means that you have more gut healing to do. In the meantime, you can get your protein from foods like pasture raised meats or wild caught fish. Okay, so those are the 5 foods that are quietly sabotaging your focus. Now, quick question, which one of these foods surprised you the most? Leave a comment below because you might actually help someone finally make that connection. I read every comment and I'll respond to yours. Now, if you suspect that one of these foods that I mentioned might be contributing to your brain fog, here's what I want you to do. Remove that food for just 1 to 2 weeks and keep a simple record of how you feel each day. Make note of your energy, your focus, your mood, and any other physical symptoms that might creep up. And then when you add it back in, see what changes. That one experiment can tell you so much more about your body than any Google search ever could, because it's based on your actual response and not someone else's. When we temporarily remove potential triggers, we're giving your immune system a chance to quiet down and we're giving your gut lining the opportunity to repair. And that's where the real transformation starts, because when your gut begins to heal, your brain finally gets the clarity that it's been missing. And if you're ready to start rebuilding that foundation, I created something that will walk you through it step by step. It's called the Leaky Gut Clean Start. And this is a 28-day guided plan designed to help you calm your gut inflammation, balance your digestion, and help you start feeling focused and energized again. You'll get simple done for you meal plans, grocery lists, and gut nourishing recipes that will make eating anti inflammatory easy. You'll also get short video lessons where I'll teach you the why behind each step, and weekly habit goals that will help you hydrate better, reduce processed foods and sugar, and support your gut naturally. This is not about restriction. It's about creating a strong foundation for your body to heal and for your mind to thrive. So, if you're ready to go from foggy to focused and feel like you're in control of your energy, this is your next step. When you start removing these sneaky triggers and focusing on whole, nourishing foods, your body begins to respond differently. You think more clearly, you have more steady energy. And for the first time, you might start to feel like your brain and your body are finally on the same team again. How good would that be? And that's the moment where everything shifts, because once you experience even a small bit of clarity, you realize how much energy that you've been losing to constant inflammation. You realize that your brain fog wasn't random, it was your body communicating with you all along. Before you go, I want you to really understand what's happening under the surface, why brain fog keeps coming back even when you're eating clean and doing everything right. And it's because there's a biological loop that keeps your gut and your brain locked in inflammation mode. And until you break it, that fog will always creep back in. So in the next video, I'm showing you exactly what that loop looks like and how to get out of it for good. See you in the next one.